Continuing our work on the more complex layouts of our site, we will next work on our main articles page. Here you can see we have a series of article lead-ins, and each item has an image followed by some content over on the right-hand side. Okay, so we have a simple flex layout here where we have all the list items going down the page behaving like normal list items. But inside of the list items, we have some flexbox or tiling situation where we have the image tiling to the left side and all of the content on the right side tiling up next to it. So let's make sure that we can have that same sort of structure here in our main article page. And what we do have is a hyperlink around the images. Okay, so that hyperlink is going to be our tile on the left. But we should probably add some containers around the stuff on the right so that it all tiles up the way we need it to. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's put a div here with a class of article intro. Let's close that down here. And that shouldn't have any effect on the actual rendering. That's fine. Let's go ahead and apply that. Actually, let's think through what we might want on the other pieces here as well so that we can apply them consistently as well. Let's see. So I realized that we actually have this intro class on the paragraph. I wonder if I'm doing anything with that right now. I don't remember doing any particular styles. No, I don't have any styles going on there. All right, so I'm going to pull the class of intro off of that paragraph. But I do have a class of date author. Let's put product or article date author there. And then on this guy, let's put a class of article title. Okay, and then let's get a class on here of article image link. Okay, so we used a link class somewhere else on, I think, the product page. So this is a link. We could have called it article link, but we have several other places that we have an article link happen in here. So I figured let's be a little bit more specific and say this is the image link that's wrapping around that image. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply this down the rest of the page. Oh, before I do, let's actually put a class of article on these items as well. Okay, now we can apply all this down the page. Okay, with those classes all applied, we can now start to drill in and work on our setup here. So let's first clear out some things that are going on with the list as a whole. Let's start by adding a class of article list on that overall list so we can clear out that spacing and that extra bullet there. So the article list class, we're going to put alphabetically way at the top of our document. So article list, HLIJK. So we're going to say margin left 0, list style none. Okay, so that cleared out the spacing, and now we've got this guy pushed over flush against the left edge. Okay, so now we need to go to our individual articles, and they're going to be display flex, flex flow, row wrap. All right, so now we should see them trying to tile, but because this content is pretty consistently taking up the full space, it ends up pushing it to a new row. So we're going to need to get in and be more specific to set up the widths that we need for the two sides. So the image is 360, and the stuff on the right is 760. So we'll go to article image link. Oops. Width 260, is that right? 360. Okay, and then the article intro. Width 760. Okay, so now you can see they're tiling up the way they're supposed to, and they just now need a gap between them. Now, like we did with the product tiles, we can think smart about the way we're using this space here, in that we have this overall space of 1200 pixels, and this guy over here is 360, and this guy here is 760, which means there's an extra gap being left at the end. But rather than just using space between setting and having them push to the opposite ends of the container, we realized that we actually also have a little bit of inset on the sides. So we could go onto the main article list overall here, or perhaps even onto the articles and put a little bit of left and right margin. We could also do the same thing here that we did with the tiles on the product page, where we put the same amount of margin on the sides of these two boxes. I believe the simpler solution here is going to be to put one setting on the articles themselves. So let's go for that, where we're going to push them in from the left and the right by 20 pixels, and then we'll use space between to get the gutter to appear the way we want. So on the articles, we're going to say margin left 20 pixels. Actually, let's use margin all together. So 0 on the top, 20 pixels on the sides, and I think we have a consistent space between them of 50 pixels. So 50 pixels below. There we go. And then let's set justify content space between. Okay, and there you go. We got the space we wanted below each item. We got the little gap on the side, and we have the gap set up over on that side as well. So these are looking very good. Now let's drill in and think about what we're doing with the styles on the inside here. So it strikes my attention here that we have H2s that we're actually styling using our heading 2 style, which is technically the H3 style. I know that's a little bit confusing because of the way that I've named these, but let me prove the point. These should be 30 font size over 40 line height. And if I use my inspect tool, hopefully you can see already that those are larger. When I go onto this here, you can see, yep, it's getting the 4.2 over 5. So we need to be able to get in here and override that setting to be a smaller setting. So I'm going to think about how I provided that heading setting in the other case. And I think it was a tag-based thing. So let's see, going down to the headings. Yet my H3s are getting that font size 3 with the line height of 4. So we may be tempted to go in and change the markup to make these H3s, but that would be incorrect markup because we have only an H1 on the page, which means these must be H2s. Okay, so to avoid making a semantics compromise, what we can instead do is add a class here, like we did before, and we can call it type heading 2. Yes, that's right. So based on the setting we have here, we called it heading 2 in our mockup because the larger size, this one here, we called heading 1, even though it's being applied on an H2 in this context. We actually want it to have a class instead of the larger size that the others are getting. Okay, so that may sound confusing. You would have perhaps alleviated the problem if you matched the name of the type spec to the actual tag you were typically going to put it on, and that's where some of the confusion has arisen here. All that to say, the styles that I have on H3s is the style that I want on these H2s. So I am adding a class that also uses that same setting, and I'm going to go onto each of these product article titles, I should say, and put that class on so that we're all getting the same correct type spec applying. All right, let's go refresh. And if we did it correctly, we should see all of the styles changing. That first one seems like it might have had a problem. Let's go see what we did there. Oop, I put it on the wrong thing. Put it on the image or the hyperlink there, which is not right. Need it on that H2 there. Okay. All right, so even though they are H2s, which get a certain amount of settings by default, we have put a class on them which overrides that H2 and provides the actual styles that we want where they're a little bit smaller. All right, ready to roll. So now we can adjust the spacing that we need between each of the items. So you can see that we have a 10 pixel gap between the title and the date author stuff, and then another 10 pixel gap between that and the intro. So I can see we have a larger gap here than we want, and we have no gap here. So let's figure out how to do that. So we want to add perhaps margin bottom on the article title, and we don't have anybody providing that margin. So we'll go to our styles and we will add the article title. Okay, interesting. So article title should already have some margin bottom. Let me see what I did differently. Oh, I didn't spell it right. Maybe you noticed that already. So let's go fix that. Quick find and replace should do it. So article title, we're going to place with the correct spelling. So that was Command F, by the way. And I just open this arrow to get the replace options. And let's replace all. Save it and refresh. Okay, so now you can see the 10 pixel gap that we had on our other pages is coming through now, and that's just fine. However, the other pages, we provided a 10 pixel, 30 pixel bottom gap on the date author, and we only want that gap on the article pages themselves. So we're going to go modify that selector. So the article, let's see, date author has the 30 pixels. We're going to modify this so that that's only being implied when we're inside of the actual page article context. So I just need to move that down. Okay, so we've been more specific to say, oops, and alphabetically that should go up here. Okay, that we only want that 30 pixel margin when the article date author is inside of the page article context. Okay, so in our situation, we want a 20 or I think a 10 pixel gap when we're inside of the context that we have here. Well, what is that context? It could be inside of article, could be inside of article list. Let's see, or article intro. I think I'm going to go with the article intro context. So we may change that later on when we think about it more, but that seems appropriate for now. So article intro, article date author, margin bottom 10 pixels. Okay, all right, so that's now more like it. Okay, this page is looking pretty good now. Let's just make sure we didn't break anything more on the article itself, and we're looking okay there too.